Good afternoon. This is a great turnout, and we are here to listen to you today and hopefully to bridge some of the gaps and the questions and provide a greater understanding. We hope that you can also hear us in our transparency in explaining some of the whys behind the whats. The senior team met just prior to this, and we talked about the importance of us honoring our guiding principles, and we'd ask the same from you today because I think these are very important. We're here to do what's best for those we serve. We're here to work together to find a way. We want to make sure that we're listening generously and accepting feedback graciously today, and embracing opportunities for change, and also sharing information and assuming positive intent. So those are 6 or 7 of our guiding principles. I would ask that if it's okay with everyone, from setting some ground rules, that John Turner have an opportunity to go through a 15, 20-minute presentation just to sort of highlight some of the things that were discussed at Town Hall and in the communication that you recently received, and we've received some great feedback from many of you. And then after the presentation, we will open the floor to questions. Please know that we recognize we don't have all the answers, and we may not be able to address some of or all of the questions and concerns today. We will have a follow-up meeting within a month, and hopefully we can circle back with some of the things that we aren't able to address, or some of the concerns and issues at that time if we're not able to, rest assured, respond to those today. Oh, absolutely. I should have taken initiative on that. Thank you, Candace. So yes, we can stand. I'm going to pass the mic. Are you going to speak at the podium? Okay. So John Turner, Director of Culinary Services, is going to present, and I believe Sam and Seth are here also to support and provide helpful input.
Good afternoon, everyone. See if I can get this right. Can everyone hear me clearly? All right. Okay, Candace. Oh, that would help. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for making it today. This is the biggest food for thought I've seen since I've been here. This is, I wonder why. Good. But a great turnout. Management's ultimate concern is always about our residents. We have a very transparent leadership style and follow our guiding principles. 1, do what's best for those we serve. 2, find a way. Listen generously and accept feedback graciously. Embrace opportunities for change and growth mindset. Share information and assume positive intent, which Tamara just clarified. So our new menu, here it is. New rotational menu 4 times per year, starting the 18th, followed by September, December, March, and June, to provide a greater variety of local produce and seasonal freshness. 2, the menu will continue to offer nutritious and balanced selection of healthy choices, prioritize the dietary needs and preferences of our residents. Acacia Restaurant Dining Menu, a summary of our culinary memo that went out. A number of entrees will be reduced from 15 to 8, with 2 specials that will change daily, one of which is a vegetarian option. This will result in minimizing food waste and controlling inventory, which will save $6,000 weekly. Select menu items will see an adjustment in cost, 6 items. We're increasing menu pricing 4 to 6%, as we have been charging well below market rates, and there has been significant increase in raw food costs. Complimentary non-alcoholic mocktails will replace the alcoholic beverages at Sunday brunch. a savings of approximately $7,200 a year. Complimentary morning coffee service will be discontinued, saving an approximately $7,800 per year, and this number is increasing due to the tariffs. Other additional benefits: shared vendors for both independent living and healthcare, which means we'll be using the same primary vendors to secure key pricing and purchasing incentives through our established network and vendors. Cross-training of culinary staff for greater consistency, versatility, and efficiencies in our approach to staffing and food service delivery. Resident feedback: discontinue free meals for prospects. Marketing is working on a plan to be more selective how they go through that process. One of the residents gave us feedback to purchase pre-made meals, which we have a concern of quality, definitely. Another feedback from a resident: bakery discounts from a local bakery to perhaps use day-old product, which is a major concern for us as well, and quality. We are listening, but we don't think that is the route we'd like to go down. Produce from our own garden is a great idea. However, due to the demand and the amount of produce that we go through, we wouldn't have the manpower to fulfill that. Hiring a sous chef to work overnight, which is unheard of, and it adds costs and its redundancy. So expect a 5-star program. Expecting a 5-star program, I really want to touch on briefly, as that is my background from most of my career. Fine dining is a $5 sign fee. It's very expensive. It does cost us a great deal. So we do our very best to achieve that. So, and our culinary team does a very good job at it. Resident favorite dishes, the go-tos from another resident's feedback. They're not being eliminated, they're being rotated, so you will see them again. Dietary needs, special diets, providing dairy-free, gluten-free, and low-sodium menu selections, what we currently and presently do. I think Samantha and the culinary team are definitely working on some plant-based items to add some variety to the menu. And another question was, what data was used to eliminate and add menu items? A comparison from several CCRCs in MELCRA and the national standard was conducted very thoroughly for us to come to our decisions that we have made. A resident stated that there were only 2 vegetables, and there are actually 3 daily vegetables, and I believe Samantha can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe another one will rotate in and out periodically. Why have the same menu across campus? It is to reduce the transition trauma and reduce costs using similar ingredients. You want to touch on that, Tamron?
Transition trauma is an industry term, and transition trauma occurs when somebody who has lived in independent living and is accustomed to the Acacia dining experience suddenly is transferred to the health center and no longer has any of those same options. Transition trauma also occurs when you've been accustomed to working with John Blunt, the chaplain, or Candace DeHorsey as your wonderful representative in spiritual guidance and also in enrichment, and then you move over to another area of care and you never see those individuals again. So one of the things that is very prevalent here at the Overlook is we are getting a lot of feedback that when people leave independent living and they cross over the threshold, that the lines are not blurred. There's too much of a difference between the two sides of the house. And we are one organization, and all of our residents and our team members deserve to have equitable choices and good services and good food and good quality entertainment and enrichment on both sides of the house. One of the most recent things, and then I'll circle back to John because I know we want to get to your questions. Some of you have mentioned that you use the portal, the resident portal, quite a bit. And when you were moved over to the health center, you were cut off from the resident portal. That was not by design. That's just sort of the way that the organization operates. And so we're looking at how can we continue to keep our independent living residents on the resident portal when they move over to a higher level of care. So those are a few examples of what resident or transition trauma is. I hope that explains it. And we're trying to, again, just create a more consistent and equitable approach in our culinary department for both independent living and our health center residents.
So number 12, the use of deli meat. Sam, do you have your mic with you? Can you touch base on that turkey comment, please? No nitrates or hormones on the campus. Can you touch base as to why that was said, meaning the Cobb salad?
So there was a comment made about what type of turkey would be on the Cobb salad, whether it would be a fresh bone-in turkey or we would be using deli meat. But any of the deli meat that we do use on campus does not have preservatives in it. There's no hormones, no nitrates. So if that is the avenue that we do pursue, there's really no worries that there's anything artificial that we're going to be delivering to you.
Thank you. So another question was, how is swordfish a good choice? When the culinary team makes changes such as this, we have Mike do all of the work, and he'll look at the item movement or how many items of a certain dish were sold. We look at the feedback from it, and we decide what goes on the menu and what comes off. So that is how we chose to put swordfish on. I mean, that's not going to be the only fish. Again, we're going to implement several other choices. I can't give you the secret one that's coming out this week, but there will be a new one. Another question is, why are French fries available only with hamburgers? Okay, so in a semi-fine dining restaurant, we chose to put French fries with the burgers as we took off the haddock, and the French fries are available at Tucker's if any resident would like them. So, thank you for the feedback that we received, and are there any questions or comments, please? And away we go.
Who was it, Austin? This is a little, I can actually fit this.
I'm Austin. I'm a newly elected member of the Resident Council, and council members have been discussing this, but I in no way represent the council in what I'm going to say. I want to be clear about that. When my wife and I realized it was time to find a place to retire to, we visited 9 CCRCs. We chose Overlook for a variety of reasons. Among them were the beautiful grounds, the hiking trails, the high ceilings in the apartments, the solarium, the food. What we found especially nice was a room set aside where people could satisfy 3 universal needs: coffee, conversation, and community. What I'm about to follow is things residents have said to me, which I may or may not agree with, but are worth mentioning. One is that $700, $800 doesn't seem like a lot of money. And if our solvency depends on that, we're in a lot of trouble. There is the thought that some people are filling their thermoses with coffee, so we'll punish the many with the sins of the few, and perhaps residents should be aware that there is a limit on the amount of free coffee you're supposed to take, and it has consequences when you don't. There's a question that very few people use the Blue Room, and that's an odd question because what is the limit? 25% of the residents here use it? Because if we're going to imply that, we should do it universally. How many people take bus excursions? I've done quite a few, usually one bus with 10 residents. Should we charge those residents for gas, maintenance, salary, and food for the driver? When we bring someone in from New York to play the piano, do 25% of the residents attend? If not, shall we take the fee and the people who have attended it, divide it, and charge them extra on their monthly bill? I mean, this gets kind of silly, as you can see. I'll stop there except to say that there are solutions, and one of them is, and I'm sure there are others, is we could purchase a Keurig coffee maker Pro on Amazon for about $220. If we're saving $30 a day, that would be paid for in 8 days. Pods are 50 to 60 cents at less. Perhaps if they were bought in bulk, they would be even less expensive. Mini creamers, 19 cents, refrigeration not needed. Mm-hmm. Pods not only brew coffee, both regular and decaf, but tea and hot chocolate. So beverages would be on demand. There'd be no coffee in the pots, cooking and burning and becoming undrinkable. The Blue Room would be open 7 days a week for coffee and conversation. Some residents have told me they would like that. People would really have to work hard to fill a thermos using a Keurig. And maybe if they're willing to work that hard, it's okay. People bringing their own cups, it makes sense. We could have a locked donation box with a suggested 60 cents a cup, people who could pay what they will. People who are a little more comfortable financially could pay more, and some of us who don't even attend the Blue Room might want to volunteer some money just as a show of love of community, which is one of the reasons we came here, is that we were told this was a community, and it would be nice if we all made that a reality, which I think for the most part is. And that's about all I say. I really thank you for listening and having this meeting and taking feedback from the tenants.
Absolutely.
Yes, so thank you very much.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I've not work. Thanks. Well, I'm David Delano, Delano. We came to Overlook for the first time in 2001. At that time, we decided that we wanted to come to Overlook. We signed and gave them $1,000 to hold our places. We came in 2006 to a cottage, Cottage 1. We have lived there for 19 years. We changed on May last year. We have been here a year and so many months. We have found that the Overlook cottages are wonderful, but when you have to give up your car because of eyesight, because of getting a license for me, because I have Parkinson's. So they call it Lewy body dementia, but I don't have any dementia. I remember when Cameron first came in here, she had a long time. And I talked to her, and I usually get up to congratulate everybody. And the staff here, you won't find it turns over, but you have to get used to it. And I, unfortunately, haven't gotten used to everything. The first day I came in, that Monday morning, Barbie had left to go take our grandson to school, and I was in bed, and the fire alarm went off. Now, I have never had that problem before because I was not shown how it worked. But I got through that. I got through these changes. I mean, if you've been here almost 20 years, you can see changes. And you see what the staff does, and you see what some of the staff don't do. But that sometimes happens, things change. I've had to get used to things changing. I can say that I'm glad I'm here. I will be 85 years old. And we have enjoyed ourselves tremendously. But I've gotten to know more people since we came up here than we had a regular group of 7. When we originally were in the cottage, there was only 7 cottages. So I think people have to realize this is a community. And everybody has to give. Everybody has to say hello. This is what we came here for. We didn't come here for the greatest food, but there's a difference. There's a difference in all kinds of things that have transpired for us. And I want people to know that this is the best place we could have found. And I think you should try to get along and try to work with the staff who work very, very hard. And there has been changes, and there will be more changes, and I'll have to get used to it. But I worked at the same job for 32 years. I changed when I came in here. Now we don't drive. And I thank you for letting me speak, because this is very important, and I consider it very important, and I'm glad to be a part of it, and I'm getting to learn new people that have come in since 2006. And there's a lot of new people that have changed over. There's a lot of staff that's changed over. But there's a lot of new staff that's moved in. I say moved in. That's only Cameron that's moved in. The rest of the staff has not. Thank you.
Okay, this is your meeting, and this is where the feedback is what we need so that we get better.
I'm Fran Mower. I just have a kind of a quick question. You mentioned cross-training of the culinary staff, and that was a little confusing. Cross-training with whom?
The culinary team will cross-train between healthcare and independent living, so that if there are emergencies on either entity, they can be cross-utilized in both buildings.
My name is Austin Heath. I looked at the letter and the menu, and in some respects, I find it acceptable. In other respects, I do not. But the main reason for these changes is obviously to save money. And to save, optimize operations. Back in November of 2023, I'm old, I remember the 19s. I circulated a memo which covered the years 2018 to 2023. That's not very long. And I took the $500 allowance and I followed the increase in CPI and the increase in our fees. They were basically the same. But the one thing in the budgeting process that did not change was our allowance for food that we would pay. When I did this, I started off with $500 in 2018. By November 23 already, if you had increased pretty much the same as our budget increase with the CPI, you would have had an allowance of over $600. And in many respects, that is the source of the problems we face today, which are expenses and in operation and cash flows. That's obvious. The question I have is that during this time we've been here, and certainly between people who came here in the early 2000s, is the quality and variety has diminished over the years. Now, as I've said to my table, I eat to live. I am not a connoisseur, and I don't want to run all over the town to find something to eat.
Right.
As long as I'm full, I'm reasonably happy. But I do think there has been a real deterioration in the food. And the classics are not classics. I would like to see more variety. I would love to see you bring back the filet mignon. You're going to charge what you need to charge for it.
$45.
What?
It'll cost you $45.
It shouldn't, because the price of meat is going down nationally at the present time. And
Good try.
and the sizes sometimes, I think, lead to waste. I know in the healthcare, in acute care on the 4th floor, where I went for 10 months to visit my wife, and it was during COVID, so they were so short-staffed. Sometimes I fed her because there was nobody up there to do it. That the menu, the waste factor up there was at least 50%. 50% of the food that was delivered got thrown out. Down here now, you have sizes of 8 ounces. That's really a lot of meat. You have 12-ounce New York steak, which has a wide range of the quality between one night and the next night of the piece you got. But how many people could really eat 12 ounces? That I think a determination of the amount of waste we have is called for. It doesn't have to be exact, to decide how big should a piece be when you've got an average age of 80-something in here. We're not 19 years old anymore, any of us. I wish I was. So those are basically my comments. I think this is budgetary.
Right?
I think we can increase put some kind of beef up on the portion that has the swordfish. I've gotten calls from some people who aren't here because they're away. After all, it's June. That are very concerned for health reasons on the lack of variety on the menu. And I know that's a problem. But I don't think that mashed potatoes should be the only potato you can have. And I don't want to leave the people I eat and talk with to go to Tucker's just so I can get some French fries. I think these are soluble problems. The other night, and the rigidity of what you can order was a problem. The other night, I ordered something that came with mashed potatoes, but I know they had rice out there. I asked if I get some rice. Nope, couldn't get the rice. I mean, out there they got a bucket of rice in one hand and a bucket of mashed potatoes on the other. What my spoonful would be, and that would be plenty, shouldn't make that kind of difference. And I recognize that from a staffing and a manufacturing standpoint, to have absolutely fixed menus is the most efficient way to do something, but it's not necessarily what the residents may want.
You're correct.
And I think there's got to be more compromise in that direction. And I realize I went over my $500 for the first time last month, solely because the prices had increased. At first I thought there had been a mistake. I got a printout, but it was all me. But the prices had increased, and that's okay. You do not set the prices throughout the country, and we've got to live with them. But if that means we have to raise our monthly fees, then we have to raise our monthly fees. But it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone wants to lose some of the quality and the ability to eat with your people and not going all by yourself to Tucker's to get some French fries. That's all I've got to say. This is a monetary thing, and we have to increase our fees and take care of some of the problems.
So I do have some answers for you, though, in the process. But thank you for all of your feedback, really. So,
I'm Sheila Ansley, and I just want to say, I do have to say, I've been here since it opened, 19 years. I do not agree that the quality of the food has gone down. I know Sam. Sam will not buy any inferior meat. She just will not do it. It's not in her personality. It's not in her work ethic. So I think we do have a lot of concerns, a lot of complaints, if you will. But I don't think quality is one of them.
thank you.
I'm George Parker. I just listened to the two Austins and agree with everything they say, particularly some of the comments that Austin has made about marching back and forth to Tucker's to get French fries. My initial comment to myself was that that's a joke. I don't think that's a serious solution to the problem, and I don't eat French fries. The other thing I come back to is the swordfish, which was the main reason that I wrote my notes that I wrote to you and then to everybody else here. Swordfish is an unhealthy fish. There is no question about that. And you are ignoring the health issue here. There is nobody in the United States that recommends more than 1 serving of swordfish per week. And a lot of us eat 2 or 3 servings of fish per week. That is a big problem. It doesn't make any difference what age you are, but this is a neurotoxin. It is a toxin to your immune system, and it is just not good for us. It shouldn't be on the menu, period. There are other fish that can substitute just as easily. I can understand that only 1 fish would be on the menu, but right now there is a fish on the menu that shouldn't be. There is one night next week or 2 weeks from now that we'll have salmon on Friday night. That's not acceptable. With respect to the safety of the food in advance and whether or not there's enough balance in the meals, and that there's some consideration for diets, particularly salt, fat, and carbs. There's a dietitian on the other side in the health center. I don't see why we can't use her input when menus are put together to make sure that there is something there to take care of these things, because right now it doesn't happen. Maybe the staff feels it is, but it doesn't. There is nothing there to indicate the salt content of anything. There is nothing there to indicate the carb content of anything. And I would take a major issue with the vegetables that will be on the new menu. There are only 2 vegetables. I don't consider mashed potatoes a vegetable. That's a side. And I don't know whether you would let me substitute for that, because that was one of the questions I also asked, and that has not been answered at this point. And then I have one last point that comes from Austin Heath about the diet when he wanted to get rice as opposed to potatoes. Similar things happen fairly frequently where you ask for something and the server comes back out and says, we don't do that anymore. And I'd like to know who makes that decision. And most of the time I assume it's to make the kitchen work more smoothly, but we sure as heck don't get any information about it. Thank you.
I'll be right back. I saw Jay first. Did you have your hand up? Sorry.
Richard Ziegler. John, you've indicated that there's a desire to not only cross-train staff between IL and the health center, but also to have a consistency of the food between IL and the health center. And I've heard concerns that the concept's all right, but there's a chance that the level of quality and presentation will go down as it's extended to the health center, as opposed to having the current standards of IL extend to the health center.
So cross-training from healthcare to independent living doesn't mean lead, meaning the cooks from healthcare will be under the tutelage of Seth and Samantha at the same time, learning how to cook fine dining cuisine. At the same time, vice versa, independent living cooks in healthcare will learn how to cook with less sodium, smaller portions, so that if one day, God forbid, something happens to one of our leads, they can then step in to assist.
So you're indicating that if I were to move to the health center, I would have the same quality and presentation as you have at IL?
You will not have the same presentation. You will have the same quality. You will have a much smaller portion.
And if I may ask you to answer your question from George for the substitutions, the reason
I think that we need to resort back on a private level with the culinary team to see that if we can accommodate and do better.
Thank you.
So just to piggyback on what John said, John and I have had numerous conversations regarding the cross-training of team members. And I don't want you to think that it's just Sam and Steve that are going to be coming back and forth. There's a lot of synergies within the culinary department that we can utilize that are back of the house team members. So that would be your dishwashers, that would be your receiving clerks, that would be some of your servers that can use the point of sale service when we have a call out, or someone that can pitch in Tucker's when Sue's not there. So it's just not from a culinary cooking hands-on, it's also on the service in the back of the house that will be doing some cross-training. And it won't be everybody. It will be those key people that John, Sam, and Steve can identify that can actually do what needs to be done on either sides of the house. So it's just not the chefs.
To touch on the rice, George, about the substitutions from rice, mashed potatoes, and everything else in between. A lot of those times we're making rice specifically for a certain dish. Now, rice is cheap, right, Austin? However, what we intend for it is to go, in this case, for the sweet chili shrimp. If we have an abundance of people asking for rice across the board, then the intention for that dish goes out the door. And now we're making more product that could potentially go to waste, albeit rice is cheap. However, we're trying not to do that. And so when we try to substitute one for the other, it causes issues on the line.
Excuse your number.
Excuse the number.
Excuse your number.
Correct. And so when we have it on multiple dishes, then it can be moved across the channel, and we can substitute it out, and you can do it that way, which is often why you'll get a server come back and say, we can't do that, because more than likely it's been me, Samantha, or Michael that have made that decision.
My name is Jay O'Con. John, thank you for doing this presentation.
Sure.
I'm just curious, have you identified those products that are costing us the most that are being wasted? Like, is it salmon and?
Actually, not really any proteins are being wasted.
Produce, I said produce.
Produce.
Yeah.
No, we have par levels as far as the produce is concerned, how much we order on a weekly basis, 3 times a week.
So none of this has to do with food waste and?
No, not at all.
Okay, well, continuing on that theme, so like we're getting this prime rib dinner for Father's Day brunch, and we have to call ahead for confirmation, who's ordering.
Right.
So we get enough of the meat. So why can't we do that for like salmon? You have the data, what we buy every day from Acacia and Tucker's. Well, let's say Acacia. You know how much we're using. We have that data. So I was thinking that maybe we have like a template. Every person gets a form to fill out every month and says this is how much salmon they're going to eat 4 days every month, how much steak, for example. And so you could budget better, you could plan better.
Great ideas, great ideas. Samantha and Seth have par levels based off of everything that we serve. From produce to salmon to chicken to swordfish. They know on any given week it's going to be 80 pounds of fish primarily. Is that average, correct?
Yes.
Okay. They know exactly how much chicken so we don't run out. And we order frequently enough to make sure we don't go below our pars. But you have a great idea with the template. We do have a par level template.
So basically you're saying that it's all because of the rise in the price of food. It has nothing to do with or overbuying.
No, we're not over purchasing at all.
Okay.
We're absolutely a nonprofit, and I was tasked with how do we manage our numbers better. So we're managing losses. And that's what we do collectively across this panel. We manage our losses.
One thing, you talk about waste, and everyone talks about waste, like we're wasting product or wasting food, and that's why things are changing. One of the things that we're doing with this menu structure by doing daily specials versus a weekly special, what the weekly specials have done over the historic 2 years that we've done this is that it's been designed that we are not allowed to run out. What does that mean, not run out? That means on a Tuesday night, you're not running out of pork shank. So what do you think that means for us on the receiving end? That means we're going to be sitting on a lot of pork shanks in the freezer. So by design, by doing a daily special, we can run out. Hopefully we don't. However, we're not holding on to that product for an eternal existence, if you will. We're not having tons of pork shank in the freezer. And if you've been in our kitchen, we don't have a lot of freezer space. So this will eliminate that problem in our back end. Does that make sense? Okay.
Dana, are you looking to talk?
Hi. Hello, Dana Gould. Freezer space. We have a kitchen over the other side, and during COVID and the renovation of the kitchen down here, did a good job supplementing information, storage, and everything from the other side. And I don't know why we still can't do that. So if your shanks are left over, for example, maybe we could use the freezer over there instead of downstairs. I know it's inconvenience running back and forth, but it's part of a solution. And I'm glad to see so many people here. John, you succeeded. Last time we had 16 people, and you didn't know why we couldn't get more people here.
Well, thank you.
You certainly managed to do that.
I have an answer for that, though, Dan. No, for your cooler comment. We thought about that already, and again, we're trying to save what we can save. That is a $70,000 expense to get repaired. $70,000. So,
I think he's talking about us putting product in
And
HC in Steven's freezer, which we already do right now, Dana, but we don't want to monopolize all of his room because he has quite a sufficient amount of product in his as well. And then when you talk about, survey coming in and they're going through his freezer, and then I might not have something that's labeled correctly or dated correctly. That goes on them. Does that make sense?
Goes on who?
That goes on their survey.
Okay.
That goes against them. If something from IL Kitchen isn't labeled properly, and I don't want to do that to them. That's not really fair.
So I want to go back to George's last comment. I'll change the whole subject for a moment. The communication, and I'm always a bug on communications, but this came out quickly, dropping the coffee and dropping, what was the other thing we dropped? Yeah, the alcohol, and I don't drink that much, so it doesn't really bother me. However, I do like the socialization in the Blue Room, and I see a lot of people coming and going in there, and almost everybody gets down through that Blue Room because of the mail at some point or other, whether they drink the coffee or not. So that's a small potatoes as far as I'm concerned. I went to make a reservation for the Blue Room for residents the other day, the private dining room, and I'm told we're going to charge $22 an hour now. It's, I don't suppose most people heard about that yet. And it's that lack of communications, that lack of foresight to talk about these things ahead of time. We've got a council, we've got town halls, we've got finance committees, we've got building and grounds. These could be talked about ahead of time before it happens. And I think that's the communication maybe that George was talking about also.
okay, thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dana. So I will address that one a little bit. I know Augie and I had a long conversation this morning. So residents that live here, any of the common spaces that you want to use are free to use for private events. But there's some expenses that go along with that. If you decide that you're going to have 100 of your favorite friends and you're going to use tables and you're going to use maintenance to set up those tables and you're going to use linens, there's a cost to all that, right? That your fellow residents should not be paying for. And that is in the catering contract. So if you've done any catering, if you haven't ever catered, you wouldn't know that. And so that brought up a concern that I want to put in the ancillary charges, so that is very transparent. Because if you've never catered an event, you would never know that. And so the thing that you're talking about, Dana, in the resident handbook, there is an obscure number. It says $60 to rent the PDR, which is funny. We don't charge you to use that space. We are charging because what's happening is we're streamlining staffing. We're making sure that we're saving any place that we can save. So if you have 12 or 14 people in the private dining room, that's going to need an extra staff. And so to do that, we'd bring someone on, and the folks that are using that space would incur that staff at $22 an hour. And we anticipate that it's 2 hours that you'd have that staff. And that is also in the catering contract. Some of these things have never been enforced. And so that's the problem. So I promise you all that I will add the catering contract to the ancillary charges, and I will hand them out to anybody that wants to see those. And I'd hope you'd understand, because if I had 14 people in the private dining room, I'd want to make sure I had an attentive staff. And if they're also trying to make sure that everyone in Acacia is being served, that stretches it too thin. So I apologize for you not knowing that. And I will take the heat for that, and I will make sure it's clearly outlined on the portal and printed and in the resident handbook.
Okay. Going along with two things that were said over there, I think it was Austin, but one, swordfish is a bad choice of fish. For a while, I don't know if it's still true, it was illegal to sell them outside of Massachusetts because they were grown here mostly, and Massachusetts residents could fish them, but you couldn't send them elsewhere because of the toxic whatever they have in them. I thought it was lead, but mercury. Okay, somebody says it's mercury. At any rate, it's quite toxic. I happen to love swordfish, and I will eat it once in a while and take my chances, but to have it as a staple on the menu is not a good idea. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up was the vegetables. Yes, potato is a vegetable. No, it isn't a good vegetable because it's starch. So to have that as a choice for a vegetable is not really a good choice. Starch turns into sugar, so if you're a diabetic, you shouldn't be eating potatoes. I don't care about the French fries, but my husband wouldn't have eaten a potato if it wasn't a French fry. So I gave him a hard time about that, but at any rate, I would like to have a couple more actual vegetables on the menu as a regular basis. I don't care if it's squash and peas. I mean, it's just, we need more vegetables. Thank you.
Seth.
Thank you. 1 second.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
As far as swordfish goes, the last time we ran swordfish for a week, you all ate a lot of it. A lot. Cases and cases. If that's true, you might want to go get your mercury checked. It's not trying to make a joke. It's fact. Now, if anyone's reading the news or watching things other than what's happening in global wars or pandemics, microplastics in the ocean, everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about being in fish, every fish under the sea. So if we're eating salmon, unless it's coming from Alaska, and then Sam just corrected me, Alaska's coming from a farm salmon, you're eating microplastics. Regardless of how you get your fish, that's a problem. So if you're concerned about mercury, that's one thing. If you're concerned about plastic, it's a whole other thing. It's the times we're living in. Now, on the regards of vegetables, you're going to have corn on the cob And I know this crowd likes corn on the cob. There is not a person in this room that I can tell you doesn't like corn on the cob,
I don't like corn on the
except for you.
cob. Thank you.
Because when we have it and Peter provides it, it goes out the door so fast. We've done it twice a year, and it's just, we can't even keep it on the shelf. So I know you like corn. You might say you don't like corn, or it's not good, or it doesn't digest well, but you still eat it. We also have fresh green beans are going to be on the menu. Not frozen, sorry. So if you like them soft, it's not going to be the thing. But they're in season, they're fresh. Now, on the daily, you're going to have another vegetable. Every single day, it's going to be a different vegetable. It's not going to be one vegetable for the week. It's going to be a different vegetable. So here's an example. Saturday, open-faced beef Wellington, asparagus. It's not going to be frozen. It's not going to be canned. It's going to be fresh. I'm looking at baby spinach on pierogies. I'm looking at buttered peas on Salisbury steak. I mean, where else? Zucchini. So the call for more vegetables couldn't be farther from the truth. You're going to get them.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. Can you hear me? Great. Okay, thank you for saying all of that. And I'll start out by saying that this is not about the service that all of you provide. We can see how hard all of you are working and how you are attentive to us in the dining rooms. I really appreciate that. We understand you have a small kitchen, and so you are working under conditions that you would like to have changed, but so be it. That is how it is. And we also understand that Overlook is facing financial concerns right now, and so we're all looking at ways to have a better budgetary matters. But I want to go back to the dining choices. I want to echo what some of the folks in the room have already said. And I think it may go back to the fine dining piece, and it sounds like, I don't know, you had just mentioned this was here for 2 years. I've only been here since January, so I'm not familiar with that. But it sounds like, yes, folks here like the specialty dinners, and that's on the menu, and that's the fine dining piece. And so if that's what people like, that's fine. Personally, I rarely eat the specialty dinner. I am planning to do it tonight. There is one that I'm interested in. But what I'm really here to talk about is just everyday food that we could eat that should be low cost and would give choices to people that are healthy and nutritious. And I've mentioned this before at other Food for Thoughts, so this isn't the first time I've mentioned it. And many residents that I talk to say that they're very concerned, you've heard it today, about nutrition and dietary needs. Yes, thank you for explaining that every day there's another vegetable. One suggestion that I had made was that it would be great if we could have a grain, either quinoa or the brown rice, choose from 2 or 3 vegetables and pick your protein. Tofu, some people are allergic to soy. Maybe they want beans, maybe they want chicken. But those are the choices that I'm talking about. For one dish, people should be able to pick what they want on it. And I don't see how that, having that as kind of something as a go-to on the menu, I'm not understanding how that would be an expense. I'd like to see fruit on the dinner menu. There's no fruit for a dessert that's healthy. I echo what everyone is saying. Thank you. Yes, you're right about microplastics, and I'm assuming that all of you are not using black utensils in the kitchen, because that also has been found to put microplastics into our systems. But yes, when I wasn't living here, I only got wild salmon, but I'm happy to have salmon now because it does provide a source of calcium for me, which is something that my doctor wants me to have. I question the salad choices. There is a Cobb salad now that is going to be, I think, is that one of the, I don't know the terminology that you use, but that's going to be there. Tucker's has that. So I'm not understanding why we can't have a different salad that would provide another choice for people who want salads. We've talked about the Cobb salad before at a Food for Thought. It has bacon on it. Many of us do not want to have bacon. I know your answer will be, well, we'll just take it off for you, which is very wonderful. But we're looking for things like kale and edamame and vegetables on it. What you have now on the weekly salad, which is not going to be there anymore. I understand that food costs have gone up, and I've been here since the tariffs have been implemented. Our food bill is a third more than it was before we got here in January. All to say that I understand that we all need to be looking at the economy of this, but my husband and I are paying a good portion for our food, and because of that, I would like to see food that I could eat on the menu. And, you know, I don't have to, and I might be in the minority, although I've heard other people who also want more vegetables and fruit and grains. So we may be the minority, but I'm not the only. And so what my question is I have said this before at Food for Thoughts, I want to know what redress we have as residents in this situation. I understand there will be another meeting in July, but I feel like residents have shared what they do want to see on the menu, and I'm not seeing it. And so how do we communicate with you to have some of the choices that we're interested in having on the menu?
One, two. I'm Jenny Frisella. I've lived here for about 12 years, and I have two questions. One has to do with dining dollars. I know that there are several people here who turn money back each month, and there are others who try to get it down to the final penny. My question is, where does that extra money go that's turned back as dining dollars?
I'm going to pass that question to the right guy.
Well,
That's a great question. My name is Dick, I'm the CFO here. That's a great question. It's been asked in prior meetings before, not Food for Thoughts, but other finance meetings that we've had as well. Again, that extra money goes to still supporting the kitchen, because whether you ate or not that day, we still had to have staff here in case someone wanted to eat. So if all of you decided not to eat tonight, we would still have to have the staff here in case someone did come down. So it still goes to running the kitchen, running the dining program.
it was my understanding that it went into the general fund.
I don't know what this general fund is. Everyone keeps saying the general fund to me. I don't know what the general fund is. I don't know where that term came from.
But it goes back into the culinary services?
It goes to running the culinary services for the month, correct?
That's good to know.
Yes.
Yeah. My other question has to do with the menu that was in there for each day of the week. How often does that change, or does it stay on there for 3 months?
It's about to change. Go ahead.
Every day.
It changes every day? Or
Just that one menu that was on a one-pager, that's going to be an everyday change.
but that's 1 week that's in there.
Correct.
The next week, is it going to be the same menu, or is it going to
No.
be a different menu?
Different menu.
So it's different every week.
Every single day. But there is a standing menu that will stay until September. So there's a one-pager that we're actually changing it to 2, so it's more readable, that will be every single day. And then your Acacia standing menu, which has the classics, it has a dessert menu on it now and has the grill items, that will change quarterly.
It's still confusing, because you have a menu in there for a whole week with different things each day.
Correct.
The next week, is it going to be the same thing, or is it going to be something different each day?
It's going to be something different each day.
Each day. Now, do we get a whole menu for the week, or do we get just a special on the day?
You'll get the whole week.
We do?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a little clear. All right. Mr. Ziegler, I think you're next. I'm coming over to you, Pat.
My wife said I already spoke, so I shouldn't speak again, but a quick cost-saving suggestion. When the server asks if you want bread, you say yes. They don't ask whether you want butter, and I've seen many times when the butter comes with the bread and is not used by the resident. So if the server asks, do you want butter, that might save some butter.
Mike, you got that?
Tim, go ahead, Tim. Tim White, go.
Okay, this is Tim White. My question was, you mentioned earlier that for example, I think you used the pork shanks as an example, that in order to have enough pork shanks for Tuesday night, you ended up with pork shanks left over in the freezer. So now we have 7 days a week or 6 days a week, we're ending a special. So I don't see how that contributes to an efficient operation. Every night you're going to have either run out, and so those of us who eat at 6 o'clock won't get any, or you're going to have some amount left over that if you were having it the next day, you'd be able to use again. So I'm really confused how having only one special a day and a new special the next day is really going to save the kind of money that you're talking about. Could you help me understand that?
What we actually do is, if we have an abundance or a small amount of leftover, it gets designed into something else for Tucker's the next day. And Richie will be creative with it, and it minimizes our waste.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Patty Heel, and I'd like to echo Laura's question about communication of the residents' input. I think what I heard Laura saying was that the residents have given a great deal of input, but they don't see any change secondary to that input. Could you address that, please?
I think that when we have food for thoughts, we take a lot of notes, then we go back and we have another meeting with the culinary team, and we decide what we can and put in and what we can't, and accommodate as many items as we possibly can without exceeding the menu. So I think Laura and her choices have been addressed, from edamame to spinach to roasted vegetable quinoa, which Samantha and I have discussed, and you should be able to look forward to seeing that.
I think, John, you probably were aware of the Achilles heel of my suggestion on the coffee. It was pointed out to me here that people are going to grab a handful of pods and take them back to their apartment. Now, I believe, as the Stoics believe, that we do bad things because we don't know better. And as the Buddhists say, we all have basic goodness, and yeah, okay, right. But if we think with intent about what we do, we're less inclined to steal those pods. And what we have to think about, and God knows I don't live my life with intent as much as I would intend to, is that we are a part of a community. And that when we take those pods, we're not sticking it to management. We're sticking it to the community. And I moved here because I felt community and family, really, was not a marketing device. It was real. And I think it's easy to forget that. And I think if we keep in mind that we all are family members, and like every family, there are people we don't like, we'd be less inclined to steal pods, for instance, for our own use. So, and I would hope the thought that they would be stolen, if you're even considering it, will not dissuade you from perhaps implementing it.
Thank you.
My name is Fred Willett, and I have one question. Go ahead. All right. I have one quick question. I'm not sure. I think you gave us the answer, but I'm just double checking. The swordfish that we're having, is that going to be fresh, or is that frozen? Is the swordfish fresh, or is it frozen? That's question number one.
IQF.
Pardon me?
IQF.
Individually quick frozen.
I'm sorry. I don't have my hearing aids in. I didn't get it.
It's frozen.
It's fresh.
It's flash frozen.
Flash frozen. Okay. Does that mean that we do not have, and what about the salmon? Is the salmon going to be eliminated off the menu as well?
It's not eliminated.
Pardon me?
It's not completely eliminated.
So there's
It's in
no...
rotation.
Okay, so that means that we have no longer any fresh fish on the menu, is that correct? If it is or it isn't, I would like to see a fresh fish on the menu.
Right. So the swordfish, it's fresh frozen at sea. So
Fresh
they-
is not fresh,
Yeah,
fresh
it is.
frozen is
It
frozen.
it's an actual thing. It's fresh frozen at sea. They freeze it right there as soon as it comes off the boat. So it basically stops the aging process
Okay,
of
so,
the fish.
so we don't buy the fresh and cut our own?
What's that?
They don't do that anymore?
No.
I used to do that, but that's all right.
No.
No. And again, in regards to the fresh fish, the haddock, the salmon, it is going to be filtered into the menu.
So
This-
what was
the
what was the
structure-
reason that why we were getting rid of the fresh haddock?
Correct.
What was the reason? I'm sorry.
Changing the variety of it. It's
Pardon
been
me?
on, changing the variety of it. It's been on the menu for over a year.
Well, all the people that I've talked to resent the fact that it's been taken off the menu, and I'm personally one of them. I hope that applaud gets your answer. It seems any business depends on one situation, and it looks like we have a little bit of a problem here, possibly, and the name is money. Now, my question to the panel, because I don't know the answer, is we purchase a lot of food here. Is there such thing as a purchasing agent for the 3 different places? If there are 3 different places? I don't know if you purchase for 3 different places or just one. And if there is, what's the answer to that question, first of all?
I'm very familiar with a purchasing agent, and the quantity of our purchasing is not nearly as to what we would need for that.
Okay, then I have one more question, because I don't quite get the answer to that. Because if you had one purchasing agent that purchased for all, you get a better deal on things like tenderloin and sirloin and haddock and swordfish and whatever.
No, I agree with that statement. However, as John was trying to say, the volume at which we would be purchasing it at, there is no advantage. We do not buy enough or a large enough quantity to be able to leverage that. Now, in terms of a purchasing agent, we do not have said employee here on campus, but we are involved in a group purchasing organization which pools our purchases with other like organizations so we can leverage sort of economies of scale and our best deals at the same time. We're too small of a company to be employing a purchasing agent.
Nick, isn't the group purchasing organization, doesn't it tap into government pricing as well?
Correct.
Okay, I just have one other question. Is there any possibility that we can have the filet back on the menu?
For $44.
Okay.
I'm not the only one that feels this way.
I think there's a greater opportunity for us to address the swordfish and then bring back the filet mignon. Actually, yes. Who would be willing to pay $45 for a filet mignon?
Yeah.
Which is the going price. So I see 2 up there, Cynthia Childs, and a couple over here. Oh, a couple over here. There's just not a need for that right now. Again, that doesn't mean that filet is gone forever, and I've said this years ago when I took over the oversight of the culinary department. It's gone for now, but not gone forever.
It will come back.
It will absolutely will come back. And just one other thing I just want to say before we move to our next question, which I know is Mackenzie's next person. Originally, the meeting was scheduled from 2 to 3. It's now 3:16. We're not going anywhere, but we just want to be mindful of that we do need to have an endpoint at some point because these guys and some of our culinary team needs to get back to get dinner ready. So We gotta defrost the swordfish so you guys can have it tonight.
My name is
I know. All right, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Tamara did whisper that into my ear, so let's give a round of applause for Tamarin. But I will say we can stick around till just about 3:30. But then we are committed to following up with additional conversations as part of this new menu process. So Mackenzie, I'll turn it over to you.
My name is Barbara Hansel, and I have a question about, this is not my thing, communication with the residents between the culinary people. On your new menu, you have gone to swordfish. Many, many people in this group eat haddock regularly on a weekly basis. And you very well should consider checking with us to see how many people would prefer to have that. Secondly, you've listed Caesar salad as your only salad. For some of us who don't like a lot of dressing on our salad, it's a very heavy salad with a lot of calories. Why can't you have a green salad with a variety of dressings to go with it?
We do.
And lastly, in terms of your special daily menus, and going back to the three entrees you've been doing on a weekly basis, it's time to get some feedback from the people who live here. Give us a little sheet to fill out saying, we liked it, we didn't like it, this is what we would like to see. Thank you.
So on that note, at the beginning of the meeting, John said this is a great turnout for Food for Thought. Last month we had 16.
The month before?
The month before, probably 20, maybe. So if you want to see reflective changes in your menu, I would suggest that everybody like this comes, because you're talking for a greater group. There's 270 of you, and in this room there's probably 100, 142 in this room right now. Never. The last time we saw this number is when we talked about taking the mushrooms off. I know. So I would highly suggest that you come back in July when we have the next Food for Thought in this number.
Dragon. Mike. Candace.
Hello, I'm John Mers, and I'd like to talk about our fine dining. Our fine dining hasn't changed in the amount of money that you received in years. And fine dining to me is that you get a soup, an entree, and a dessert. Well, I've been doing that for the last couple of months, but I can't make ends meet. There's me and my wife, and the average that I'm paying is $40 a day. 40 times 30 is $1,200, and I only get 1,000. So we're going to be seeing a 6 to 8% increase in our pricing. We need to see a similar increase in the amount that we receive monthly.
Nick, can you address the data points on the $500 and the $750, please? Do you have that document? Okay. Can you pull up that data? Data doesn't lie.
Yeah. So to speak to what he was just talking about in regards to the dining dollars again, how his dining dollars are not stretching as far as they used to. I mean, again, the dining program is built into your monthly service fee. So if we were to raise the dining dollars, it would directly raise your monthly service fee at the same time. Currently here at the Overlook, we budgeted for this year, for 2025, to run the dining program. That's staff, that's food. We budgeted about $819 per person per month, and right now we're spending about $758 per person per month. And that overage of over $500 goes straight to the loss section in our bottom line. Again, we're trying to sort of right-size our costs and where we land in terms of the cost of food output to you. So that way we don't have to change your dining dollars. Instead, we've changed the cost structure on our side here. I hear what you're saying, but again, a raise in the dining dollars would directly be related to it, then a raise, coincidentally, to match that in your monthly service fee.
I was wondering if we could have a vote on, a floor vote on what kind of fish we want, whether it be swordfish, the haddock, or maybe fish cakes or something.
He's asking for a vote for fish.
Did he say fish sticks?
Fish cakes. And
Because
he
those
was
are
being-
frozen, and I'd have to go now to defrost them for dinner tonight.
This is Steve Dragon. This may not be popular with the residents, but my suggestion is if you're going to remove the alcohol from the Sunday morning thing, you might as well get rid of the mocktail, because what's the sense?
So regarding that, we are, as we said in the memo, we wanted to be able to provide options for residents that wanted to bring their own enhancements to the dining room to still enjoy. I believe it was. You can bring, because I know there are a number of residents that do bring alcoholic beverages to the dining room, and so we still wanted to be able to provide, let's say, the orange juice, and then someone can bring one of those little bottles of champagne and make a mimosa for themselves. Or if there was another mocktail that they wanted to add and bring their own enhancements to the dining room, we still wanted to be able to give people that option. And that's why the mocktail is the current thought process.
My name's Dale Cogzall. I've been here about a little over a year, my wife and I, but my perspective goes back to when the apartments opened, because my father-in-law was the first one in. And one of the things that happened was we were here for several weeks because things were in a bit of a disarray, and we were trying to help him get settled and accommodate to things. But last time we had this meeting, Mr. Turner, I spoke to you about fine dining versus, no, you might say comfort food or regular food that many of us would have if we were still cooking at home. And for specific, here a while back, you folks served shepherd's pie.
Comfort food.
And it had mushrooms on it. I couldn't taste, and I like mushrooms. It had other ingredients which I would usually taste, and I couldn't. All I'd taste is whatever the concoction was that you'd put on top of it. No, and that's the difference between fine dining and basic dining, or whatever you might want to call a lesser type of food. And I'd like to see more, and this will go to your costs too, more of the basic foods than the fine dining. So I realize that this is one person in this party of over 100. There might be a heck of a lot of those who differ with this, but when things changed to fine dining, it occurred when my father-in-law was here, and most of the things that were on the menu, he didn't eat. We'd come visit, his standard line would be out of the steak. No, because it was one thing that was sort of a standard, rather than something that was mixed up with all sorts of other food tastes. Thank you.
So,
So-
can I answer that real quick?
Yeah.
So when I took over oversight of culinary a couple years ago, we really started to walk away from the fine dining terminology and really wanted to go more towards an upscale casual type of dining environment, which I think, based upon what Sam and Seth and the team downstairs provides, it's a little bit of both for those people that are, some of our newer residents or our younger residents that are looking for more of that upscale piece. We can accommodate them and their dietary preferences, but then also as someone who enjoys a good shepherd's pie myself, we can accommodate those residents that's what they're looking for. So I think the terminology fine dining really isn't part of the vocabulary, at least at this point. I don't see it going back to that, but I do see it as an upscale casual dining experience based upon the menus that Sam, Seth, and the team has been creating over a period of time.
Okay. First of all, I just want to thank each of you because you guys are incredible. You really, and your staffs are incredible. And I know this is a hard time for everybody, and change is hard. My question was, if you are unable to make it for food for thought to put input in questions like, I want to know why the haddock was taken off, whatever that may be, what's the other avenue to do that? Who do I call? Do you have a culinary email where people can put a question in if you can't make it to food for thought? There's got to be another way to communicate. I'm not going to storm the castle. I'm not going to storm the chef's castle over there because they'll just laugh at me.
That's a good question. We'll revisit that, and I'll get back to you.
So I would say one area, if she's still here, and she is, Sheila Ansley and a group of dedicated residents meet on a monthly basis. I always get the name wrong. Resident Dining Advisory Group?
Committee.
And Food Advisory, thank you. And then Sheila, when does that meet? So there's a meeting day after tomorrow in the private dining room. What's that? 10 o'clock in the morning. That is open to all residents every month, and that is one avenue that you should go to because Sheila and her committee have direct ears to both Sam, Seth, and John. John does attend that meeting, as does Sam and or Seth, and so that they're hearing right from residents on a monthly basis at the second Thursday of the month at 10 o'clock in the morning in the private dining room.
And our dining manager will also be there.
One more question. I just was wondering if we could have a show of hands as to what would be the favorite fish, whether it be baked haddock or the swordfish, and a show of hands to see just what people think.
So I want to touch on that. That's my last closing argument here. So that being said, the reasoning behind removing the haddock was for change. We did get feedback that we wanted more change, right? That you guys never saw any immense change. There was always small, subtle things. So we kind of went big. Now listen, I am not here. I'm not looking to win the vote for most hated man in America. And I will absolutely put the haddock back on. It seems to be that is the consensus. With that being said, we're also talking about healthier options on this menu. You will not have the choice for fish and chips as well. So baked haddock will be on, but fried fish will not be. So.
And
you won't be seeing swordfish on the specials for a good amount of time because it's clearly my data is skewed. So.
And if everyone wants to turn their head to the back of the room, it is 3:31, so we are going to end this meeting before we talk about fish and chips. But I think it's important that you all know that we are looking to continue to get your feedback. If you didn't have an opportunity to ask questions, go to Cynthia Childs, who's our resident council president. Go to Sheila Ansley. speak to Sam and Seth as you see them in the hallway. Reach out to John, reach out to myself. Tameron's out and about in the community. And I just want to leave you on one note. Yes, we do have some work that needs to be done in order to bring down our overall expenses. And I know Christine hates when I use this expression because she loves an elephant, but you can't eat an elephant with one bite. So coffee may seem like a small factor, but it actually is part of a much larger group on the other side with regards to reductions that need to happen. So we're always appreciative of your time here. Thank you very much for your feedback and your cordial reception to what we presented here today. Thank you, everybody.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.